Welcome. Today we're going to be diving in more to our rib and pelvic connection, focusing on this idea of rib flare. I do want to note rib flare by itself is not a bad thing. We need to have the ability to get that mobility at that particular joint of the spine. It's more a matter of the lack of movement that we experience through the rest of the spine. I want to re-engage that so that we have more support with that rib flare. The idea that if we only move at one joint and we can't distribute that movement across the rest of the joints, well, that one joint is going to get overused and it's going to create some wear and tear issues. So working to develop that connection of how the ribs relate to the pelvis so that we can encourage that more of that thoracic mobility is ultimately going to be a positive thing. So let's get started. So we're going to start in our quadruped position. I'm going to spread the hands nice and wide, ground the palms, extend the elbows, kind of pushing through fully, but not locking the elbows. Toes are tucked underneath. I want to get that big toe tucked. And we're going to start with our crocodile breath. Obviously, with hands on the floor, we don't get to use our hands. Nice inhale in through the nose. And I want to, again, feel that abdominal wall, imagining that it's a balloon. So each inhale, we want to feel it inflate. It's not just forward into the belly, also out through the sides and up into that low back space. Can you feel that balloon expand on the inhale as we exhale, drawing that navel up and into the spine? We'll start with like 5 up to 10, nice and slow, full breaths in and out. Generally with my breaths, I like that nice 5 to 8 second count, both inhale and exhale. So it's nice, slow inhale, and then nice, slow exhale. Now, as we're getting into our breath, I want to start adding a little bit with our shoulders, specifically focusing on the elbows. As we inhale, I want to feel the elbow pits slightly turn forward, like we're trying to rotate them out and away. And as we exhale, I want to feel them rotate and turn inward, like we're trying to turn them towards our hips. Feel that external spiral on the inhale. Feel that internal spiral on the exhale. I want to keep that happening through the elbows. And now we're going to come to our hips and we're going to get into some pelvic tilts. Continuing to spiral on that inhale, exhale with the elbow pits. Now, as we inhale, I want to start to allow that breath to move more into the belly. Let the pelvis tilt down to the floor so that we start to get this sway in our low back. Our elbows should be spiraling forward at that time. And then as we exhale, drawing that navel up and in, we're scooping our tailbone. And I want to really just feel that in our low back. At the same time, we're spiraling those elbow pits internal. Inhale, feel that belly open up to the floor. Exhale, feel that scoop. Again, elbow pits spiraling with. As we inhale, elbow pits are spiraling forward. As we exhale, they're spiraling back towards the hips. Now I want to start to let this movement move up the spine. So on this next exhale, we're going to scoop and we're going to continue to scoop. We're also spiraling in and we're going to continue to spiral in. And as we do, we're going to feel that movement go up the rest of the spine, allowing it to, as it gets to those shoulders, really press through, continue to internally spiral, and then allow that movement to go over the top of the head, like you're trying to touch your tailbone and your forehead at this imaginary point right here in the middle. And then on the inhale, pelvis is dropping to the floor, elbows are spiraling out. Feel that sternum reach to the floor like it's dropping and the head comes up last. As we're externally spiraling, I want to feel the shoulder blades kind of starting to pack. And as we're exhaling, internally spiraling, feel those shoulder blades round over the top. Great. We can take a moment, come off the wrists a little bit. And now we're going to get into our child's pose. And this is where we're going to start to play a little bit with that rib and pelvic connection. So before we do that, I want to come back into that quadruped, and I want to come back to just the pelvic tilt. And so inhale, let that pelvis tilt forward. Exhale, we're scooping, but we're only letting that movement go into the low back. And as you're doing this, I want you to feel the relationship of that 12th rib. In fact, we can take one hand real quick and just touch kind of the base of our rib cage, feel where that 12th rib is. You can even put one hand on it if you have decent shoulder stability to feel. And notice as you inhale and that pelvis tilts to the floor, notice how that rib kind of wants to rise away, move away from the pelvis, like it's rising up towards the head. And then as we exhale and scoop, you should feel that rib moving towards the pelvis, drawing in. And that's the relationship I really want us to play with, is feeling how pelvis tilts forward, rib extends out, pelvis scoops, rib draws in. And we're gonna work on that throughout the class. So now we're gonna go ahead and bring our hands more forward. Nice spread hands is where I want to have really good sticky, downwardly pressed hands, and the elbows are active and straight. And we're going to do that same pelvic tilt and play with that rib from this position. So inhale, allow that pelvis to tilt forward. Notice how that rib just naturally sticks out. Exhale, scoop. Notice how that rib is moving up and in towards your pelvis, towards your hips. Also start to notice as you exhale, can you feel your core get a little tighter, a little stronger? As you inhale, it's opening up and kind of stretching, and it doesn't feel as taut. On the next inhale, when we exhale, we're going to, as we scoop, we're going to now start to let our sternum drop to the floor. Inhale, we're coming out of it. Exhale, we're dropping into it. I'm letting you have a few of these before I want to come back and really pay attention to that rib. So as we inhale, coming up, that rib is allowed to stick out. As we exhale and scoop, I want to feel that rib cage moving towards the hips at the same time that we're dropping into our chest. Now, this can be tough because this is that position where as we bring our arms overhead, if we don't have that thoracic extension, that rib is going to want to stick out based on our shoulder position. But at the same time, we're scooping, which is trying to draw that rib in. So it's like the rib doesn't know where to go. We want to encourage it to move towards the hips on that exhale. So really try to feel as you're dropping down, you're also feeling that rib moving towards the pelvis That should increase the stretch that you're feeling at the shoulders. You may still find it kind of difficult to feel. So on the next exhale, as we get to the bottom, we're going to stay at the bottom. And we're going to play with that same breath in and out with our pelvis. So inhale, allow the pelvis to tilt forward. That is going to extend that rib cage out. And then exhale, scoop. See if you can feel the rib moving towards the hip while you're in this extended position. Inhale, allowing it to open up. Exhale, feel that scoop. Notice the core, your abdominals. As you inhale and open up, they are stretching and getting long. As you exhale and scoop, they should be getting tight and short. And hopefully you're also feeling that tension at the shoulders kind of changes as you scoop into it. We'll go ahead and come out of that position, give the arms and the shoulders a little bit of rest. We're now going to switch into our shin box position. So I'm in my left side shin box. Left hand is coming down to the floor outside of the hips. Palm grounded. Weight is shifted over. So this back hip is free from the floor. Again, I don't want to try to keep both hips down. I want this hip free to float so that we can let it move and play with it. Opposite hand. I want to place it on the same side rib. So right hand for me on my right rib, and I'm on that 12th rib. And we're going to start with bringing that breath into that back hip bowl. So I want to imagine that inhale breath is filling up that bowl. It's like it's got a weight to it, like you're filling up a bowling ball. And as that bowling ball gets heavy, it just reaches that hip to the floor. However, I don't want to shift my weight. I don't want to move my shoulders to try to press that hip down. I want to keep that weight over so that breath reaches the hip. See if it can touch the floor. Then as we exhale, we're letting that hip come up, move forward, and we're actively scooping into it. That same scoop we were just working. Want to feel that as a light stretch on the front of the hips. Inhale lets that hip reach to the floor. Exhale up, reach forward, and scoop. Now, as we're doing that, we have our hand on our rib. So I want to notice, what does that rib do when we inhale and we reach that hip to the floor? Notice it more than likely is moving up and away on that inhale breath. As we exhale and scoop, notice how that rib is now moving down as we're getting shorter and tighter between that pelvis and that rib cage. I want to get comfortable feeling that relationship. Notice this is happening on just one hip. The other hip is not doing that same relationship, so the other rib cage to hip is not getting quite as extended out. Once we get 5 up to 10 reps on that, we're going to switch across to the other side. Again, grounding through the palms, spiral the elbow, pack shoulder, tall spine. Weight is shifted over. Hand is on our left side rib cage. Again, inhale into that bowl of the pelvis. Exhale as we actively scoop into it. Things to kind of notice here is this hip tighter and more restricted, or was the other hip tighter and more restricted? And that's going to be important because the tension in the hip is going to impact the relationship with the ribs. So now coming back to that hand on the rib, breath in fills up that hip bowl. What direction is that rib moving? Again, it should be moving up and away on our inhale in relationship to the pelvis, and we should feel it moving down towards the hips on that exhale. Now, if you have a different pattern on one side compared to the other, One, it's probably going to be related to that mobility in the hips if the hips feel tighter. And it could be a signal of some other kind of imbalances or movement dysfunctions that we want to work on. I have a little bit less movement relationship on this side. My left hip is chronically tighter. It's harder for me to get full hip extension. So I'm actually finding on my inhale, my rib cage does not move up as much on this side. It kind of stays down. It's easy to get here. I don't get as much scoop, but I don't have as much reach up and away. So again, I want to pay attention to these differences on one side compared to the other. We're going to go ahead and switch back to the other side. Still playing with that same breath, breathing in, letting that pelvis drop, feeling that rib cage extend, exhale, scoop as we feel that rib move to the pelvis. But now we're going to add another element to it. As we inhale, getting nice and open, exhale, feeling that rib drop, then we're lifting that knee, back knee up towards the ceiling. Inhale as you let it down, rib is allowed to lift. Exhale, as you lift, I want to feel that rib moving towards the pelvis. Once we get about 5 up to 10 reps, and again, before we do that, pay attention to how high is this knee, back knee going, how tight and where does it feel tight in this back hip. Then we'll come to the other side and we'll do the same thing. Again, nice grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine, hand on rib. That inhale, feel that back hip bowl drop, feeling that rib hopefully lift. On the exhale, scoop and feel that knee lifting up towards the ceiling. Oh, this side's a little tighter. I don't get quite as high. Inhale, see if you can encourage that rib to lift and move, especially if it feels a little stuck. I'm not getting as much lift on this left rib. It's starting to move a little bit better than it started, but I can feel a strong relationship to this tension in the hip and how that influences my mobility in the rib. And if that's happening with me on the floor, I guarantee it's happening with every single step that I take. And so we want to encourage a little bit more movement between in developing this relationship. And I really want to feel the relationship because then my body develops some awareness for it. I'm starting to get a little bit more mobility in the hip and I'm starting to feel a little bit more mobility in the rib. So now we're going to move back across to the other side. Again, we're keeping that rib, that hand on the rib. And now we're going to add in our rotation, but I'm going to keep the hand on the rib to start with. Everything else with our breath is the same. That inhale is filling up that bowl. The rib cage should be lifting. Exhale, scoop, feel that rib move to the hips. Now, as we get that exhale with that scoop, I want to take the shoulder that is my backside shoulder, and I want to turn that shoulder like I'm trying to reach the tip of my shoulder through my knee. But I'm not reaching with my hand. I'm only turning with the shoulder. Inhale brings it all the way back to that hip, filling up the bowl. Pelvic rib cage is lifting. Exhale, scoop, feel the rib cage drop, and then rotate. Now we're keeping that hand on the rib so that we can feel what it does as we start to rotate. And more than likely, with that scoop, we're feeling it drop. But then as we rotate, you might start feeling it lift away. And again, that's not a bad thing. I don't want to make that to be wrong. But I want to see if we can encourage continuing to feel that rib reaching to the hip at the same time that we're scooping. Can we get that scoop, feel that engagement, and can we maintain it? And as we're rotating, can you still feel the rib cage moving this way instead of up, even as you rotate that shoulder to your knee? If you're able to sync those things together, you'll probably find there's a lot more like strong core, abdominal bracing going on. That's connecting, boom, power core. And now we get into that rotation. The more we rotate, we want to feel that connection a little bit stronger. Let's go ahead and switch and do the same thing on the other side. Largely, I want to do it so we can compare. So again, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine, and our weight is still shifted over. Hand is placed on that back rib. Inhale into that hip. Exhale. Feel that scoop, feel the rib drop, and then turning that shoulder towards that knee. The side significantly tighter. Interesting. So thing to point first is just with my inhale and scoop, my left hip is already moving a little bit better than we started, which is the primary purpose of doing these movements first thing in the morning. But as I do get that scoop, feel that rib reach, my rotation is significantly tighter. I have a lot less rotation. And I feel that rib wanting to lift away more than I did on the other side. So I'm going to put a little bit more focus into this. I'm going to slow it down, see if I can develop that connection with control. Can I feel that scoop? Can I feel that rib continuing to reach towards the hip as I turn and rotate? Oh, I can feel that more. I'm starting to get that feel of that connection into the core. My range of motion is definitely limited. I am not getting this shoulder around quite as much. So I have significant reduction in my rotation related to this left hip. And these are important factors. This is part of the reason I want to break down my assessments to be so specific, because little areas that I don't move well might feel insignificant by themselves, but when we start to layer them into other joints, they become very significant. So I have to get into those small spaces and to be able to assess. And the only way to do that is to develop a sense and feel and awareness of how my body moves, which just takes time, patience. It goes slow. Let's go ahead and switch back to our other side. We're going to do the same thing, but now we get to add in more of a reach through the hand. But we're going to still start with that hand on the rib. So nice inhale into that back hip bowl. Again, feeling that rib lift. Exhale, feel the scoop, rib drops, rotate that shoulder. Once we get that shoulder fully rotated, then we can release the hand. We're going to spread that hand wide. We're going to extend the elbow fully. We're going to spiral, and I'm reaching through my knee, spiraling the palm up to the ceiling, and then seeing if we can rotate and reach a little further. Inhale brings that hand all the way back to the rib, all the way back into that back hip bowl. Exhale, scoop, feel that rib and pelvis locked in, rotate, then release the hand, spread, extend, spiral up, and reach. As I reach, I want to continue to feel that rib trying to move towards my hip, my back hip. I don't want to let it start to lift just because I'm extended out. So I'm still feeling this connection trying to reach down as I'm rotating. That is going to might feel really challenging. It takes a while to really build the neurology to these more micro movements. We'll go ahead and switch and do the same thing on the other side. Rounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine, weight is shifted, hand on that back rib. Inhale into that back hip, exhale, actively scoop, feel that rib dropping, continue to feel it drop as we rotate. Oh, that's feeling a lot better now. Let the hand release, spread the fingers, extend the elbows, spiral the palm, keep that elbow extended and rotate a little further. Oh, and again, that's where it's tighter on this side. I feel a lot more localized in that hip. I'm feeling a little bit more mobility, in the hip, but definitely more mobility with that rib. Get a nice spiral, spread, and rotate. I don't expect any one session to clear up an imbalance and make everything perfectly balanced, but improvement is so significant in reducing the risks of moving within imbalanced ways. The more wobbly we are with our balance from one side to the other when we walk on a daily basis, much more hazard in the wear and tear on our body. So just being able to reduce that is hugely significant. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to come into our folds now. I think I want to go with the knee as the arrow since we've already kind of been focusing on that. So knee is the arrow. So I want to turn my shoulder to my knee. I want to keep my shoulder square to that knee. So I'm going to bring both hands on either side of that knee. And I want to press into the floor to make sure that as I extend those elbows, I am even from shoulder to shoulder related to the floor with that knee right in the middle. We're going to continue with the breath into that back hip bowl and exhale with that scoop. And I want to again continue to feel that rib moving towards that hip. And then exhale, we're going to fold and let those hands slide through that knee. I want that knee to be perfectly square as possible to our sternum. Inhale, we're coming all the way back up, filling up that back hip bowl. Exhale, scoop. Let those hands slide. Now, as we're sliding forward, I want to still feel that rib trying to reach towards the hip. It's going to be a little harder to feel since we don't have a hand on it at the moment. But even as I'm reaching away, I got that scoop. I can still somewhat feel that connection, even though I'm extending out through those hands. And you may find that, some of the range of motion is limited. It should probably not going to go as far as I'm going, especially if this is new for you. So I want to really work on the staying tight to our assessment points. So if you're able to get that scoop and feel that rib drop as we're reaching, if you're not able to stay evenly square through the shoulders and you find one hand goes a little bit further, or that you tend to drop your head to the floor in order to try to make it happen, you're going too far. Go ahead and back off. I would rather you go only so far, but keeping everything even and square so that you can develop the relationship, than to force it and then to start one hand's going further, the shoulders are no longer square, the ribs flaring out, and it's so much going on that we can't feel it all. So keep the movement as small as it needs to be in order to feel what we're working on. The goal is not to get lower. The goal is to build that connection. We'll go ahead and switch to the other side and do the same thing. So again, shoulders square to that front knee, hands equal distance from each side. Press into the floor to make sure those shoulders are square. That breath is coming into that back hip bowl. And then on the exhale, we're scooping. Try to feel that rib connection. Continue to exhale as we then slide our sternum through the arrow of the knee. Inhale brings it all the way back up into that back hip bowl. See if you can feel that relationship between that rib and that back hip. How does it feel on this side compared to the other side? Now, once we get an equal number on this side, now we can kind of get out of our assessment phase and we can just play in our shin box. So we're going to start to go back and forth, side to side. As I go from one side to the other, I'm no longer concerned about maintaining square to that knee. I can move through my shin. I can move through the knee. I can move behind the knee. We get to explore a little bit. So I want to give you a little freedom in the practice. But as we go from one side, we're going to inhale and we're going to go all the way across to the other side. I'm doing the same thing. By going back and forth, makes it a little easier to compare one side with the other side to see what feels similar, but more importantly, what feels dissimilar. And when you feel something that feels dissimilar, can you play with it? Can you figure out, can I make it feel a little bit more like it does on the other side? That might require slowing down a little bit, kind of feeling. A lot of it is going to be in that relationship of that hip and pelvis or rib cage. So, you can play in that area to see if that kind of brings things feeling a little bit more balanced. As we've gotten a few in, we're now going to start to change our shin box angle, letting that back leg slide open a little bit, continuing to get that nice fold. As we inhale, let that leg slide back up, come to the other side, and then let that leg on this side slide to the same point. And with each one, we'll let that shin box angle open up a little bit more and a little bit more till we get closer and closer to what we would consider a yoga class pigeon pose. But again, I'm not overly concerned with the end range of that pose. I'm more interested in developing all these connections that we're working on right now between the ribs and the pelvis. And getting some nice mobility into the hips themselves. This is a movement that I like to spend a good amount of reps on, 10 to 20 reps at a time, especially first thing in the morning, can really do wonders to open up the hips, getting things moving well for the day. As long as we're not forcing it, I don't want to push that range of motion. I don't want to try to force it. All right. So now we are going to get onto our back. I'm going to we're going to start with some hip rotation. So I'm going to bring arms straight out to the side with the palms up. And I really want to press down into the floor. And this is where I want to imagine we're laying on a bed of sand and we're trying to make an imprint of our entire upper back. And I want that imprint to be perfect, which means we cannot slide around or let that shoulder lift or roll around. We got to pin the shoulders all the way out through elbows and wrists and hands and hold it there. Once you have that position, then we're going to bring knees up off the floor. I want the knees to be a little, or hips to be a little less than 90 degrees. So bring the knees in a little bit. Knees can be right at 90 degrees. And I want to pay attention to the tabletop at the knees. My knees are square together here. This means that my hips are also square together. We're going to do hip rotation. So want my hips to roll. My hips need to stay square. So as I roll to one side, one hip has to lift and roll over the top of the other. As I'm rolling, my knees should stay square to the hips, not square to the ceiling, square to the hips. So as I roll, if I look at my knees and one knee is further out related to the hips, one knee is further back, that means my hips are not moving together. They're not staying square and one is falling behind. So I want to really make sure that that hip is moving with, and I'm keeping that square nature at the knees. Keep the movement small to start with. So we got those arms out, pressing down. Nice inhale when our knees are at the top. Exhale as you feel the knees roll, trying to keep them square together. And you're probably going to notice that rotating in one direction, it's a little easier to keep the hips together, the knees together. And when you roll to the other side, it's harder. Maybe you feel it in your low back or in the hip, but you're noticing, oh man, I don't get that hip to move as well. And if you then push it and get it to reach more, you're probably going to light some tightness and tension up that you may not have been aware was there. Now, as we're getting into this, I'm going to relax the arms part. I want to keep those elbows out, but I'm going to let my hands come in to touch the ribs, just that 12th rib. So I was out here, just allowing those elbows to bend. If they need to slide in a little bit in order to make contact and feel that rib cage, that's okay. This will we're going to make our rotation a little smaller since we have less engagement through those shoulders, because I don't want those shoulders to lift still. But here, I want to feel the relationship of the ribs with that pelvic rotation. Again, on inhale, as we're coming to the center, ribs are going to naturally open up just a little bit. As we exhale, I should feel, so as I rotate to my right side rib, I should feel that moving across towards my left hip. It's really my left hip is moving towards my rib, but I don't want to feel that rib flaring out with. That means I'm rotating into my thoracic spine. I want to keep that thoracic engaged, so that rib should be moving towards that hip. Again, really, it's the hip moving towards the knee, or the rib moving towards the hip moving towards the rib, not the rib moving towards the hip. But relationally, because we're palpating the ribs, what it feels like is the rib is moving to the hips. And as you're doing this, notice, is there a difference in how this moves to the right side compared to how it moves to the left side? You can come back and check those knees to make sure that they're remaining square together. Good. All right, so now we're going to bring feet flat to the floor. And this one's going to be a fun one. So again, this is a great work for assessing that rib and pelvis. So we're going to start keeping both hands on the ribs, and we're going to come back into play with pelvic tilts. But now we're in our supine position. We started out in our quadruped. So as we inhale, that belly is going to kind of lift up a little bit. Pelvis is tilting forward. This creates a big sway in the low back where a hand can kind of slide underneath. As we exhale, we're scooping and we're feeling that belly button pressing down into the floor. I don't have a lot of push going on through my feet. My feet should be fairly relaxed. But we got our hands on the ribs. So as we inhale and that pelvis is tilting up to the ceiling, We should also feel the rib cages rising up to the ceiling as well. As we exhale and scoop, drawing that navel in, the rib cage should feel like it's moving down towards the hips. I want to do enough reps that we can really feel that downward press, ribs related to pelvis. So it might take 5 to 10 reps. Really get full exhale. Try to feel that nice, strong bracing in the core as you fully exhale. Feel that scoop and that rib moving down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let our hands off the ribs. We're going to reach straight up to the ceiling. And I kind of want to lock the thumbs together just to keep the hands together. And we're going to do the same rib pelvic tilt with our inhale. As we exhale and scoop, I want to feel that rib drawing down. And from here, we're just simply going to allow our arms, keeping the elbows straight, to reach to the floor. I'm saying, how low can we get this reach without losing that rib? I don't want to feel that rib lift up. I don't want to feel that softening on the floor from that mid-back area. So core is trying to stay active, engaged. As I'm letting those arms reach back, I'm seeing how far can we go. Inhale, bring them back up. Let that pelvis tilt forward. Let that rib flare. Exhale, scoop. And start to see how far back can you go. Now, this particular movement or drill will give us a big indication of that thoracic mobility. If you are finding that you're kind of stuck here and that rib wants to start to lift, that's going to be a strong signal of that there's some stickiness in that thoracic spine and we need to work on getting better mobility. Ideally, as we exhale, we feel that rib drawing down and our shoulders, our arms are able to come all the way to the floor. I'm not quite there. I got a good inch or so. We haven't really worked a whole lot on shoulder specific mobility. So it's a little tighter than I would like it to be. But this is a decent start and I'm starting to feel the floor without that rib wanting to stick up. And simply going through this particular drill should help to open it up a little bit. Part of what has to happen here with that rib dropping down is that as our arms are reaching overhead is that we have to get a little bit of segmental extension in the thoracic spine so that the shoulder blade can slide down the back a little bit more. And that's what gives us that last like 10, 20 degrees of range of motion in the shoulders. If those shoulders are rounded forward and that shoulder blade can't slide, then it's going to get stuck. It needs that thoracic extension in order to get overhead without that rib flaring, right? And if the only way we can get that arm overhead is with a rib flare, that's where we're getting too much movement at one joint. We're isolating and we're overloading it, and that's going to create problems. So this becomes an important kind of place to focus on. There's more we can do in the shoulders here. I'm going to keep it there so we can keep it tight and kind of have progressions to work from. Last thing I want to get into is some glute activation. So we're going to let our legs go nice and flat to the floor. We're then going to bring one knee, bend one knee and bring that foot flat. And I want to move that foot out to about 45 degrees from the midline of the body. So I got my right foot down. I want to have my right hand on my right rib, that 12th rib. And we're going to do our pelvic tilts just on one side. Opposite leg is going to be completely relaxed. I don't want to feel it lift. I don't want to feel it pushing down into the floor. I just want to feel it enjoying itself, watching the other side do all the work. Right side foot is grounded, flat. I want to feel connection through the ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and heel. Inhale. We're letting that pelvis lightly tilt. Rib is lifting up. Again, sway in the low back, but primarily on this side. Exhale, light scoop. I want to feel that rib dropping down towards the hip. I'm not lifting the hip off the floor for just yet. I want to go back and forth between that breath in and breath out. I want to feel the rib flare on the inhale. Exhale, I want to feel it moving towards that hip as that hip is starting to lightly scoop. As you get that light scoop, can you also notice there's a light engagement through the foot, that the foot is just kind of naturally grounding like it's ready to push into the floor. And as we're doing this, I now want to start to allow that hip to scoop a little bit higher so it starts to lift off the floor. And then inhale, let that rib flare, exhale, scoop a little higher. With each one, we're getting higher and higher until we get into that full hip extension. Again, I want that rib, feeling that rib moving towards the hip as we're driving that pelvis up to the ceiling. And it's actively scooping into it. Start to notice that stretch on the front of the thigh. If it's a massive stretch, then I want to play with it to see if we can get it to soften up. Can we get it to let us have a little bit more range without so much stiffness? And if we're able to get that full hip extension, we should start to feel that glute engaging as well. The foot's engaged, glute is engaged. And again, I want that rib moving towards the hip. And part of the reason I want to teach this glute activation with that rib flaring is if you ever experience pinch in your low back when you're doing this glute activation, it's probably because as you're driving through that hip, that rib is moving with and it's moving away. That's why I want to encourage that rib moving down to the hip. So that means we're not getting that extension in that at the L5 or L1, T12, L1 junction. If we're not getting that, we're not going to get as much of that pinch. We're keeping all the vertebrae stacked. So I want to feel that scoop, rib down. I want to start to feel some burn in that glute. And again, if you feel tightness in the front, squeeze into that tightness. See if you can get it to loosen up. The more that tightness loosens up, the more we're going to feel that glute firing. And I like high reps on this. I want to do up to 20 reps at a time in order to really encourage as much neurological firing at the level of the foot to the glute as we can get. We'll go ahead and switch sides. So bring that foot down so that the feet are touching together. Then the opposite foot comes flat so that you can move it out to 45 degrees from the midline of the body. Again, I want that tripod nature of that foot, big toe, ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and heel, equally grounded. Switching our hands, so the left hand is on that rib, starting with just pelvic tilt and breath. Feel that rib lift away on the inhale, exhale. Lightly scoop, not enough to lift the pelvis, but enough to feel that rib move towards the hip. Inhale, feel it lift away. Again, does it feel different on this side? Does it feel harder to connect or easier to connect? My left side again, it's a little bit more challenging. I feel some stiffness related in the lower back. I definitely feel that tightness in the front of the hip. So as we're exhaling, now we can start to feel that pelvis lift a little higher, continuing to feel that rib drop towards the pelvis. And with each one, we're going a little higher and a little higher till we start to feel that stretch through the front of the thigh. Again, opposite leg should be relaxed, not involved. Can you feel that rib extend on the inhale and on the exhale? Can you feel that rib dropping? And can you start to feel that stretch? And can you move into that juicy stretch to get it to start to loosen up a little bit, to give you a little bit more access to the range? And again, as we start to move into that extension, can you start to feel that glute firing up? Other things we can really want to notice on this, just to compare one side to the other. How solid does your foot feel on the ground? Does one foot feel more solid than the other one? That's important. Notice your knees. Does one knee feel really solid and stiff? And the other one, is it a little shaky? Is it a little wobbly? Harder to keep ice, really keep good pressure through. Those are really important assessment points as well. And if you're feeling either of those, that's a good time to just go ahead and schedule a consultation with me so that we can figure out how to get better glute engagement through both sides of the body, because this is a pretty significant dysfunction that we want to work on. And again, I want high reps. As you're moving into that stretch, start to really squeeze into the stretch. The more you squeeze into the stretch in the front, the more you should feel the contraction in the glute in the back. And continue to feel that rib cage moving towards the hips as you get that good engagement in the glute. My left side is definitely more challenging. It's harder. It's tighter on the front, which makes it a little harder to get into that full glute engagement. But as I get into it, this movement is really been powerful as far as giving me some level of balance between the sides. There's always going to be some imbalance, but the closer I can bring it to balance, the better. Again, I want good 20 reps, really starting to feel that glute burn just a little bit. And this is a movement that really doing it 2-3 times in a row, or 2 or 3 times over the course of the day, can have very, very positive benefits and impacts. Once we're done with that side, let's go ahead and bring both feet flat to the floor. We'll let our arms go out to the side with the palms up. Since we didn't start with a crocodile breath with our hands, I don't want to finish with our hands, but we're still going to get into our crocodile. So nice inhale in through the nose. Again, I want to feel that expansion in the abdominal wall, like we're inflating a balloon. And then on the exhale, feel that navel drawing up and in, pressing the spine into the floor. As we inhale, I want to feel the lift of the belly, but I also want to feel that low back expanding into the floor. If the belly is lifting and the low back is lifting with it, that means we're not inflating that balloon into the back. It's only going forward. So feel that belly lift, but also see if you can feel that low back naturally expanding into the floor on that inhale breath. And then exhale, navel to spine as we scoop. Really, we should feel that back somewhat flat, the spine specifically, not perfectly flat because there is a natural curve in that back, but I kind of want to feel it back, the low back pressed into the floor on both the inhale and the exhale. Although there's going to be a little bit of a different quality to how it feels depending on whether it's the inhale or the exhale. We can take our focus off the abdominals. We're still breathing into that crocodile breath, but now I want to let that breath come up into the ribs. Same concept. I want to feel the ribs expand through the front, out to the back side, but I also want to feel that upper back expanding into the floor. And then on that exhale, feel everything kind of softening, rinsing off. Breathe into tension. Notice any areas where it feels stiff, restricted, rigid. On the exhale, let that tension just melt into the floor. You can give yourself a minute or two of just nice, slow breath, tuning in, kind of checking in. Notice if there's any other areas of tension in the neck, shoulders, hips, low back, down into the feet. You can just breathe softly into that tension, and then on the exhale, let it go, and consider those areas in which we want to explore a little bit more of our movement as our day goes. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Take your time getting up. Want to make sure we're not dizzy or lightheaded before we come up to a seated or standing position.